Okay, guys, so in this little bit, we're going to get some more tools for Pygame. So first things first, I am starting from my minimal working example code, and it should be noted that if you're working on Repel, it kicks a whole bunch of errors. Well, it dumps a whole bunch of crap into the console because the sound library that Repel is using doesn't work, probably because obvious reasons, right? It's a virtual machine. It probably doesn't have access to like pushing Chrome sound or something. So those don't affect functionality, but if you're working in Repel, you should expect to see errors of this form. These don't do anything. They don't affect functionality at all. I added some comments to that effect. That said, let's start working on getting this thing to actually display something in the window. So to that end, I'm going to remove my welcome print line, and I'm going to say that we're going to make a new screen space. And that screen space we're going to initialize by doing pygame.display.setMode. Okay, parens here, and then you need to pass this thing a screen size as a tuple. So as a tuple means that it has to go in parentheses. So it's parens within parens. And then you can give this thing a screen size in pixels. So I'm just going to say 800 by 600, which is, you know, a standard old school resolution. Avoid a little white space error there. Okay, so this makes a, well, it doesn't really make a window. It sets the resolution of a screen object. Okay, now the thing is, I'm not actually displaying this screen right now. Let's just try this. This may well throw me into an error. Okay, cool. So I said it doesn't set a screen, but it does, which is display. Right, so that screen pops up, and then it disappears. And the reason it disappears is this piece of script, right, hits the end. There's nothing keeping this running, and so it does this thing where it displays this screen very faithfully, but then it closes. Well, it closes because you didn't ask it to stay open. So one of the things we need to know is that any kind of video that you're watching, like this one in particular, is really just a series of still images smashed together, right? I mean, there's a little bit more complexity to it than that, but that's good enough for a first understanding. So what we're going to do is we're going to basically make a flip book of our game. So in order to have that flip book, we need to have an infinite loop. Now, there's a couple different structures here. If you watch the videos, the supplemental videos that I'm going to add to this thing, you'll see 2 or 3 different ways to do this. I'm a fan of just having a truly infinite loop. Other people will tell you that this is a terrible idea because it is. This is bound to hang. So if you do this one, I'm not going to push run on this because I don't want to hang this. But if you want to hang your computer, this is a great way to do it. You need to have some method to get out of this loop. So that's the first thing I'm going to put in. I'm always going to have one in. So in my loop, what we're going to do is we're going to listen for an event. And this is all actually happening in Pygame. You don't really have to, you don't have to think about how this is working. But every 60th of a second or so, I mean, really, as often as this thing can loop, it's going to loop. And when it goes through, it's going to listen, right? It's going to check whether anything new has happened. And then it's going to put those things into a list or a structure, a data structure. It's really probably a... Actually, I'm not sure how they're archived. It's probably a dictionary. It might be a list. I don't know. Let's try it. So if we want to get an event, we do for event in pygame dot events. Oops, that's not how you spell events. Dot get. So this is going to go in and it's going to make a result of all the events that have happened, and it's going to make some kind of iterable object out of them. And then we're going to say for the events in that kind of list or structure or whatever the heck it is. We could probably look up exactly what it returns in the doc string or in the docs, but let's see. Does it give me a? That doesn't give me a nice module. Pygame gives me some stuff. Events apparently a module missing a doc string. Okay, well, sorry. So we can look in the documentation and see what that gives us exactly. But this is going to give us an event object, and then if the event dot type, right? So if the type of event is a Pygame dot quit, which is spelled that way, right? So if the user says to quit, then what we should do is quit Pygame, and that's going to be done by Pygame. Oops, that's not how you spell Pygame. Dot quit. Okay, so that's going to quit us out of Pygame. Now we're still in an infinite loop, so we should also quit out of Python. And the way you quit Python is you call the quit. Okay, and then in here we're going to do one more thing. And this thing I'm always going to do, this is going to be Pygame dot display dot update. Okay, now what that's doing is that's going to go to the next flip card. Now right now I'm not drawing anything, so it doesn't really matter. But you're going to want to do this anyway. I'll see if I can get to a motion example here. So this is going to be like draw the next frame, more or less. Okay. So let's see. Let me add one more comment here. So if quit event. Okay. So this is now the kind of minimal working video example, right? So before I had a minimal example that just showed me that I had Pygame installed. Now this is about as simple as you can get and have video running. I like this structure because this explicitly illustrates that I'm quitting Pygame and then I'm quitting Python. Other people will put a running Boolean in here and then do while running, and then in here they'll set running equal to false. That's totally fine. That structure works perfectly. That relies on hitting the end of the file to quit. In mine, I'm force quitting, mishmeh, half a dozen of one, six of the other. I'm sure people have strong feelings. Please feel free to yell at me on Twitter or whatever. Joke's on you. Don't have a Twitter account. Okay, so here's my window. Rad. Awesome. Let me get a couple more items on this thing. So for right now, this is just drawing a window and it's looping. So first things first, let's make ourselves a background color. So we're going to take screen and we're going to set the fill of the screen, right? So remember, screen was the result of me setting this display.set mode. So screen is really going to be a Pygame display object, right? So that's a is it? Oh, bummer, it doesn't tell me. So screen is going to be some kind of the idea of a window, right? So I'm going to set the background, right? So I'm going to set the fill, and I'm going to use, again, I'm going to put a tuple in here, and I'm going to do 0, 0, 0, and probably that's white. Let's hope. Let's see. So I also have a couple problems here. That's just a white space. Missing a new line at the end of the file. Missing white spaces, of course. Okay. All right. So white space problems addressed. I've set my screen.fill and passed it white. Thought I passed it white. Oops, that's black. White is 255s all the way around. So let's set it to, should be noted, these are red, green, blue values. So this is going to be all the way, should be all the way red and no green and no blue. So what do we get? Oops. Forgot to close that. P.S. You need to close that before the next one can open. Okay, so now I have my Pygame windows turning red. All right, so let me draw some more stuff on there. So if you want to draw more stuff, you can do, let's see, it's Pygame.draw. And then when you pass Pygame.draw, oops, sorry, Pygame.draw, and then the shape. So I want to draw a circle, and I want to draw the circle on the screen. So I'm going to pass it the display that I want to draw it on, and then I'm going to pass it a color. So I'm going to pass it a tuple that's 02550. Right, so that's going to be green, red, green, blue, right? And then I pass it a position. So I'm going to draw that at 100, 300. Oops, and that's going to also need to be a tuple. Okay, so that's the screen you're drawing on, right? The window you're drawing in. The color of the thing, where you want it, and lastly, not lastly, almost lastly, how big you want the radius to be and how thick you want the line to be. So let's see if that'll work. So, linter problems, white spaces, of course. Okay, good. Running. Okay, red screen, green circle. All right, so I went 100 over, and it looks like 300 down. So the coordinates on this thing are X and Y. So Y points down, which is confusing as heck. So just be aware of that. 0, 0 is in the top left. Just like if you've taken processing, it's exactly the same coordinate system as it is in processing. It's just a little bit harder to get things to draw. Most of the same functions exist. This tupling is a little annoying, right? Let me see. So let me add a little comment here. So the circle is being drawn, and this is, so the window you're drawing in, right? The color of the fill, right? The position as an X, Y, the radius, and then the thickness of the circle. And it should be noted that these are things that I'm getting out of the Pygame documentation, right? I don't have these memorized yet because I haven't used Pygame that much yet. So right now I'm looking them up, and it's totally fine. So this is getting me a window that I can draw some stuff in. So your first assignment's just going to be to use some basic shapes to draw some stuff, and then we'll get along to doing some movement, maybe playing some games. All right. Oh, I guess I should check and see that all this works in Repel. So let me just do that real quick. I'm just going to run it in here. I'll change this back after I'm done. Perfect. Okay, cool. So see that these aren't affecting anything. It's still working. I actually don't know how to quit a Repel window. It doesn't have a little X on it, right? So if you want to quit these, you can just hit Control-C. It'll give you a keyboard interrupter, just per usual.